Point guard, a 6'5" senior, number 2, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was born on July 12, 1998 to his mother and father, Shai Gilgeous and Vaughn Alexander. He was raised in Hamilton, a decently sized city in Ontario, Canada. Located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, he transferred to Hamilton Heights Christian Academy so he could improve his basketball skills as a junior. At first, he was not the most outstanding player and didn't make the school's junior team, so he played for the school's midget squad, as it was called, and he ended up winning their team MVP. And then he attended Sir Allan McNabb Secondary School and then headed to Hamilton Heights Christian Academy because he wanted better competition. Imagine that. After being a 4-star recruit, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander reopened his commitment after originally committing to Florida, and he decided he would end up going to Kentucky. Shai would then head off to college, playing for Kentucky, and he would sit as a reserve to start the season, but he still averaged 30 minutes a game. He went from having long hair to short hair, and some people say this summoned his basketball skills, as when he got his short hair, he went from the 6th man to the starting point guard. During the regular season, they lost 4 straight games, and he was still a consistent contributor to the team. His scoring went up to 13 points a game, along with 4 rebounds and 4.5 assists, and his averages for college would end up being 14.4 points a game, 4.1 rebounds a game, and 5.1 assists on 48.5% from the field, 40.4% from 3, and 81.7% from the line. Now, Kentucky had a few other NBA players on the team: Hamidou Diallo, Nick Richards, Kevin Knox, and PJ Washington. However, that would not take them too far in the March Madness tournament, as they would lose to Kansas State in the Sweet 16 after 2 great games from Shai in the first 2 rounds against Davidson and Buffalo. Then on April 9th, 2018, Shai declared for the NBA draft. Hello everyone, my name is Mason Moves, or Asperity, whatever name you know me as, and let's dive deep into the story of how Shai went from being an underrated high school prospect to an NBA superstar. If you've kept up with the NBA this year, you've probably seen the Oklahoma City Thunder sitting at the top of the standings for pretty much the whole season, bouncing anywhere between 3rd and 1st for most of the season, and a lot of that is due to the polarizing play of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. His deep bag of isolation moves, his great post-ups, turnaround jumpers, in and out crossovers, spin moves, you name it. He has so many great moves in his arsenal, and he's very, very hard to defend. However, if you go back a few years, you'll see he had a long track of development from the time he first got in the NBA versus now.
With the 11th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
However, this pick was traded for the next pick to the Clippers, and this pick was traded for Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges would end up becoming a decent player for the Hornets, got in trouble with a lot of stuff we're not going to talk about here. As for Shai's career, if you look back on his 2018 2019 rookie season, he had played all 82 games, which is a tremendous accomplishment for any player, with averages of 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal. His efficiency wasn't bad, but it wasn't outstanding by any means. Shai's second season in the NBA is when everything began to change. On July 10th, 2019, one of the most blockbuster trades in the history of the Clippers and Thunder organizations happened. The reason I say this is Paul George was traded to the Clippers on this day in an exchange that included Shai, Danilo Gallinari, and a few draft picks. Now, highlighting his season, Shai, for his second year in the NBA, sophomore season, averaged 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. His minutes per game jumped up. He started every single game for the Thunder, all 70 of the games he played. His efficiency stayed around the same, which was good because his volume had increased drastically. During this season, he also had a 20-point, 10-assist, 20-rebound game and was the youngest player in NBA history to achieve a 20-20-10 stat line. His third season in the NBA was not much to talk about, even though he did improve once again, scoring going from 19 up to 24 points a game and 5 rebounds going down from the season before, but assists jump up to 6. He would only play 35 games because he would have to miss the rest of the season with plantar fasciitis. Now, unfortunately for Shai, he would have to deal with injuries once again, as in the 21-22 season, he would end up only playing 56 games as he would face more injuries, but instead it was an ankle injury. The team would finish 24-58 in the 21-22 season, full of all really young talent, and there was not really a set direction on where the team was going. Sam Presti had faith more than anyone in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and on August 3rd, 2021, Shai and the Thunder agreed to a 5-year, $172 million rookie extension. This contract would then grow to a $207 million contract when he was named to the All-NBA team in May of 2023, the season in which he would end up being 5th in MVP voting. The only time in his career that he'd end up making the playoffs, the first 2 seasons, the first being when he was on the Clippers, and this is the year that they lost in the first round to the Warriors in 6 games. His next playoff series was actually against the Houston Rockets in 2020, in which they'd lose in 7 games in a very tough fought-out series. Since then, he has not made an actual playoff appearance, which is why the Thunder seem to be so overlooked when it comes to the playoffs this year, because you don't really know what to expect. If there's anything history has taught us, it's that you don't sleep on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as in the first play-in game of last year, the Thunder took on the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans as the Thunder were the 10 seed. The Thunder had overachieved and were not expected to be anywhere near as good as they were. However, they'd end up winning 40 games, still with missing Chet Holmgren for the season. Now, the most memorable part of this game, not just Josh Giddey's great performance with a near 30-point triple-double, but Shai having 32 points and the most important shot of the season for the Thunder. And although they'd go on to lose to Minnesota, that's the basis that some people may use to describe Shai's recent postseason failures, or that he may not be a playoff riser. Which is fair enough criticism. I mean, you see how many great players that we've seen, and the one time that we get to finally see Shai improving and becoming a star player, and he has a bad game in the play-in, what else are people supposed to say? Coming into the 22-23 season, the Thunder looked scary. They were going to be picking up the number 2 overall pick, Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga, Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, and also Jalen Williams from Arkansas. But unfortunately, this fantasy was too short-lived for the Thunder, as before the regular season even started, on August 25th, Chet Holmgren was announced to be missing the entire season with a Lisfranc fracture in his foot. Now, this was a huge blow to Thunder fans such as myself. However, Shai decided that this was time for him to step up. Now, in the career of SGA, if you really look back, you can tell this is the season when everything began to change. He went from being a guy that could give you 20 to 25 points a night, and even though he was reliable, he was never going to be the determining factor on an elite team. Even though they would only make the play-in, he would end up finishing All-NBA first team along with 5th in the MVP voting, averaging insane numbers of 31 points, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 1.5 steals, and 1 block a game, while shooting a ridiculous 51% from the field, 34.5% from 3, and 90% from the line. The team would finish with a record of 40 and 42, good enough for 10th in the West, just barely beating the Dallas Mavericks out for the 10th spot. And the team would also finish with the 5th best offense in the NBA, scoring 117 points a game. The most impressive part of this season was that the team was only expected to win 23 games this year, and they managed to finish with 40 wins. The team had pretty much the exact same roster as the year before, except for a few key additions: Jalen Williams, and Isaiah Joe. Looking past the 22-23 season, after the disappointing loss in the final elimination play-in game against the Timberwolves, the Thunder were out for revenge. As for the current mark in this NBA season, the Thunder are sitting at 3rd, tied for 2nd in the West at 52 and 23, and Shai has played 71 games this season with averages of 30 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6 assists, along with an insane 2 steals and a block a game, on his 2nd lowest turnovers per game since being a member of the Thunder. What's also incredible about this season has been his efficiency. He's shooting a whopping 54% from the field, 36.5% from 3, and he's shooting 87% from the line, a little bit down from last year. But when you look at his efficiency from the field, you'd much rather take that over that potential 3% at the free throw line. Now, what makes Shai Gilgeous-Alexander so elite on the basketball court is his elite ability to use his feet quickly in any direction, any change of pace that he'd like to get to his spots on the floor in ways that can catch the defense off guard. He's got great soft touch around the rim. He's great at driving to the basket, catching his defenders with pump fakes, and he can stop on a dime, and he's very shifty on his feet. Shai is listed at 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan, which is a great combination for not only his defensive prowess and to be able to get in the passing lanes or even on-ball steals, but to be able to shoot over taller defenders on those tough mid-range shots that he's so excellent at. As the way things currently appear, even though it's not set in stone, the Thunder look to be a top 2 or 3 seed heading into the playoffs. Now, depending on who they get matched up against, it may be a tough matchup. With the incredible development of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and his basketball skills, I don't think you should count the Thunder out just yet. What makes Shai so hard to guard is his speed and athleticism, along with his size, which means if you put a smaller, faster guard on him, he's just going to use his size and length to his advantage. But if you put a bigger defender on him, they might be too slow to keep up with him, being able to stop and go in an instant. Even though the Thunder are a young and very inexperienced teams, they still pose a dangerous threat to some of those at the top with more experience. And don't be surprised if you see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's name more and more in the years to come. One of my favorite things about basketball has always been to see how one player can get their shots off and how one player can set themselves apart from the rest. Now, this guy, SGA, has been able to do that in a way that I haven't seen before. He has quickly developed from being a rising young star in the league to easily being a household name and a top 5 player in the NBA. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and just know that no matter what happens, ball never stops.